Hey there, and welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about something that can really change the way people see you and the way you feel when speaking English. We're talking about agreeing and disagreeing politely. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever disagreed with someone, but didn't know how to say it nicely? Maybe you stayed quiet, or maybe you said something too direct, and it felt a bit uncomfortable. Yeah, we've all been there. In many cultures, being direct is okay. But in English, especially in everyday conversations, people often try to soften their opinions, not because they are weak, but because they want to be respectful. So today, I'll show you how to agree, how to disagree, and how to do both politely and naturally. And don't worry, we'll keep it simple, easy to follow, easy to repeat. All right, let's start with agreeing. Agreeing is usually easier, but even here, there are levels. Let's begin with simple agreement. You can say, I'd agree, very clear, very direct. But in real conversations, people often add a little warmth. For example, I totally agree. I'd agree with you. That's true. Exactly. Let's try one together. Repeat after me. I totally agree. Good. Now try. That's true. Nice. Now imagine this. Your friend says, learning English every day is important. You can respond, yeah, I totally agree. Practice really helps. Do you hear that? You agree, and then you add a reason. That makes your English sound more natural. Now, here's a question. Do you always need to strongly agree? Not really. Sometimes you only agree a little. This is called partial agreement. For example, I see your point. I understand what you mean. You might be right. Let's practice one. I see your point. Good. This is very useful. It shows respect, even if you don't fully agree. And this brings us to something important. You don't always need to say, I agree or I disagree. Sometimes, softer language is better. Now, let's move to disagreeing. This is where many learners feel nervous, because no one wants to sound rude. But here's the good news. English gives you many polite ways to disagree. Let's start with what not to do. Avoid saying, you're wrong. Oof, that sounds strong, right? Instead, we soften it. We can say, I'm not sure I agree. I see it differently. I don't think so. Let's try one. I'm not sure I agree. Good. Notice how gentle that sounds. Now, here's a very common and natural structure. Listen carefully. I understand what you mean, but let's try it. I understand what you mean, but this is powerful. Why? Because first, you show respect. Then you give your opinion. For example, I understand what you mean, but I think practice is more important than talent. See that? Smooth, polite, natural. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever argued with someone and things got a bit tense? Maybe voices got louder. Maybe feelings got hurt. Sometimes it's not what we say, it's how we say it. So here's a tip. Use softeners. Words like maybe, I think, it seems, in my opinion. These make your sentence feel lighter. Let's try one. I think it's a good idea. Nice. Now compare. It's a good idea. And I think it's a good idea. Which one sounds softer? Exactly. The second one. Now let's build a polite disagreement together. Repeat after me. I see your point, but I think there's another way to look at it. Good. That's a beautiful sentence. Very natural. Very polite. Now let's make it even more conversational. Imagine your friend says, online learning is better than classroom learning. You could say, I see your point, but I personally prefer classroom learning because it feels more interactive. Do you hear that? You pause, you think, you respond calmly. That's how real conversations sound. Now let's talk about something interesting. Sometimes people don't disagree directly. They use questions. For example, do you think that always works? Is that true in every situation? Let's try one. Do you think that always works? Good. This is a gentle way to challenge an idea. It doesn't sound aggressive. It sounds curious. And curiosity is powerful. Now, here's another tip. Use tone and body language, even if your words are polite. A harsh tone can change everything. So keep your voice calm. Keep your energy relaxed. Now, let's practice a short conversation. I'll say a sentence. Then I'll give you a response. Ready? Sentence. Watching movies is the best way to learn English. Response. I agree to some extent, but I think speaking practice is also important. Your turn. I agree to some extent, but I think speaking practice is also important. Great job. Now another one. Sentence. People should work 7 days a week to succeed. Response. I'm not sure I agree. I think rest is important for productivity. Your turn. I'm not sure I agree. I think rest is important for productivity. Nice. You're doing really well. Now let's talk about something deeper. Why is polite disagreement important? Because language is not just about words. It's about connection. When you speak politely, people listen. When you respect others, they respect you back. And this builds confidence, not just in English, but in life. Now let me ask you a quick question. Do you usually agree with people, even when you do? Be honest. Many people do this. They avoid conflict. But here's the truth. It's okay to disagree. You just need to do it kindly. So instead of saying nothing, you can say, that's an interesting point, but I see it a bit differently. Let's try that. That's an interesting point, but I see it a bit differently. Perfect. Now here's another useful expression. I'm afraid I disagree. Let's try it. I'm afraid I disagree. This sounds very polite. even though you're disagreeing. Now let's combine everything we've learned. We'll build a longer response. Repeat after me. I understand what you're saying, and I think you have a good point, but I feel that there's another perspective. Take your time. I understand what you're saying, and I think you have a good point, but I feel that there's another perspective. Beautiful. That's advanced, but very natural. Now imagine using this in a real conversation. You'll sound confident, thoughtful, respectful, and people will enjoy talking to you. Now, let's slow down for a moment. Think about your next conversation in English, maybe with a friend, a colleague, or even online. What if you tried just one of these phrases? Just one. That's enough to start. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to try. Now, before we finish, let's do a quick recap. When you agree, you can say, I totally agree. That's true. Exactly. When you partially agree, I see your point. You might be right. When you disagree politely, I'm not sure I agree. I see it differently. I understand what you mean, but, and remember to use softeners. I think, maybe, in my opinion, these small words make a big difference. All right, let me leave you with one final thought. Good communication is not about winning. It's about understanding. So the next time you disagree, don't think of it as a conflict. Think of it as a conversation, a chance to share, a chance to learn, and a chance to connect. Thanks for spending this time with me. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, be kind with your words. I'll see you in the next episode.